This meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Matters. I'm here today with our special guest, Cheryl Odell-Duffy with Eagle Title. We're super happy and fortunate to have Cheryl sharing some of her knowledge with us about the title process, settlement process. It's kind of unmasking the settlement process today and pulling back the curtain. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody.
That's awesome. I totally appreciate your time. I know you're busy and you're a wealth of information when it comes to title work, title business. I know you've been doing it for several years. I won't say how long in case you don't want me to, but go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a quick little background.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. I'm an Aquarius and I like long walks on the beach. No, so thank you so much for your time and for taking the time to listen to me. The rolling joke, and I had mentioned this to Greg when I just kind of Googled YouTube to see what kind of videos for title. Everything was like, title's not sexy, title is boring. And I don't know. I find it kind of interesting, especially when I do get into the underwriting part, because I am able to underwrite as well. So it's not like I'm just a salesperson. I started in mortgage back in 1986 and then went into title and escrow in 1988, and that's where I've stayed. So it's become a passion. I love helping people figure things out. I love handling some listing prerequisite type things. I think it's helpful to have a little listing. I call it a toolkit to take with you to hopefully win the listing, you know, when you're up against some competitors. Maybe if you have some additional information with you handy to show the seller, it just shows them a little extra effort. They don't know, they don't have to know where you got it or who, you know, prepared it for you, but willing to help with that. And I owned a title company. I've worked for a few different title companies. I don't move around a lot, but a lot of title companies do end up kind of merging, or, you know, their owners sell out and then the name changes, but you're kind of still in that location. Currently the branch manager in Severna Park, but I work out of Severna Park and Annapolis, and I have done some settlements in our newer location all the way up in Towson. And I also have a car. So guess what? Anywhere you have a settlement, I'm going. So
Awesome.
Bel Air, no problem. Yeah.
I mean, you have a fantastic reputation within the industry, as does Eagle Title. So, you know, that carries some weight with it as well. And you've already mentioned a couple of things. I personally think like title is sort of the unsung hero of the process, right? I see the realtor, the job of the real estate agents. You know, we typically take the ball and we're somewhat air traffic controllers. We have access to a lot of different resources, and we're obviously out there showing homes, writing contracts, and negotiating transactions. Couldn't get anything done without the lenders, obviously, for the most part, for the majority of the transactions. So the lenders are intimately involved in the transaction, but title is obviously one of those team members that's germane to the real estate transaction. They're the ones conducting settlement, and you know, they're head of the table at the settlement table. So a lot of what you guys do, though, I think some of the consumers and our clients don't really know. You know, they just know that you guys are the ones who ultimately, you know,
Take the money.
take the money, stamp the documents, and we're good to go. But you sort of, and I do love the fact that you mentioned, I find title work very interesting. I love researching land records, and for me, it's a little bit of a treasure hunt sometimes to learn about the properties. And I love the pre-listing help that you provide, because a lot of that is super important. And I don't think agents take advantage of it necessarily often enough. It's important to get in front of potential objections or problems before, you know, they manifest themselves last minute, 11th hour. So a lot of that work is super important. But you did, I don't want to jump the gun per se, but you mentioned underwriting.
Yes.
I would imagine a lot of agents.
Yeah, it's really the problem solving, right? So people will say, how fast can you do a deal? So we don't go out and advertise, and neither do our competitors. Hey, we can get a deal closed in 3 days. Obviously, the more third parties, and I've always joked that it's not even a joke, it's on many of my social profiles that I'm an information gatherer and an anxiety manager, because I really feel like that's what it becomes. And the problem solving is part of that. So, you know, properties that have been transferred and transferred and transferred, the likelihood of an error in the chain of title is going to be greater and greater. Although some people think if it's just been one owner for 50 years, it's no problem either. You know, they've never had a lien. So the type of things, and it's not just the unreleased mortgages, and that would be like from a prior owner, they did pay their mortgage off, but somehow that piece of document, that document was never recorded at the land records. What's phenomenal about Eagle and the team is, and I'm tooting the whole team because it does take a village, is that we have in-house underwriting. So we have a team. So if I have a heavy settlement day and I'm unable to like get that underwriting going myself and start problem solving, I'm able to hand that off and they're not in settlement. So even though my schedule may be stacked, they're able to start chipping away at that. Sometimes they're even resolved when I get out of where, whatever appointment I'm in. So I do love that they have that. I've worked for prior companies that kind of had centralized where it was even out of state where the attorneys were reviewing things. So I love that it's local people reviewing the local issues. But I just had a settlement recently. Actually, it hasn't closed yet, where the listing agent, who is very seasoned, been around a long time, very good agent, wrote the contract as an estate for the deceased husband or father. And it ended up that actually both daughters are entitled. So when she pulled ESTAT, it didn't have the most recent deed. And it was pretty old deed, but you can't always go with what's in the State Department Assessment and Taxation or Maryland Land Rec. That's when you become the investigator to really hunt that stuff down in the chain of title.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys do everything. I mean, you're doing the investigating and researching, like you're saying. You're making sure that, that property is clean and clear of any clouds or encumbrances or anything that wouldn't provide clean title to that. Super important.
Right.
You're recording.
A lot of consumers, I think that you can Google everything. So when we go through the process or we say this is our fee and we're super competitive, we keep in line with our competitors in the area here. They're like, well, what's the big deal? I could look it up on, line and find out. And they just don't understand the depths of one document and how deep it can go in the land records in the chain. So we actually run a 60-year title search even for new construction because prior title companies can make mistakes. It's all about the ownership of the land. Even if it's new construction, it could be several owners that have come together to create that subdivision.
Yeah, and you're really looking out for the client or the consumer at that point, and making sure that their ownership interests are protected, and in fact they have, clear title to that property.
And that in turn really protects the agent because honestly, if you think about it, if something goes sideways, guys, which never happens, right? Never. If there is going to be a lawsuit, they're going to just sue anybody that had their hands on the file.
For
So
sure.
we, Brad Walsh always has this line like, we're your paycheck guarantee and your license guarantee because we're not ever going to let you compromise yourself. And I don't mean that you're trying to be shady. You may not even realize it as an agent. We've been asked questions and we're here to protect you just as we are to protect the buyer's title and ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my agents, we obviously can't be experts in all facets of the real estate process, right? But that's where we rely heavily or lean into our business partners and make sure that we're aligned with professionals and people that are doing their job to the utmost standard as well. I guess talking about that and, protecting the agent, protecting the consumer obviously is most important in the process. But there's also, you guys are making sure you guys are doing that work too, to also issue title insurance, right? And that's kind of a backstop on all of this.
So obviously lenders, mortgage companies require a title policy. The lender's title insurance policy protects the lender only. So obviously the lenders see value in a title policy. So when you have an owner that wants to waive owner's title insurance, it's not like we strong arm or like you're crazy. We provide additional factual information that's in layman's terms for them to understand the risk that's involved. It's typically one of the biggest purchases of their lifetime. It is a one-time fee, and the rate that attorneys are charging these days, I think it's one of the best buys around. Of course, I'm in the business. But as an agent, if you don't have an opinion on it, I've had a settlement where I had an agent speak up and say, you don't need that. I knew some attorneys. And I thought, man, if anything ever happened, like now you're going to be liable, like you've said this. So when it's a cash purchase and there is no mortgage, because it's a cash purchase, title insurance is actually required if you're closing with a title company, because the lawyers lobbied and got some things passed with the Maryland Insurance Administration that says, if a title company does a settlement where no title policy is issued, it's considered the unlawful practice of law. It's a fancy way of putting it, but the lawyers just don't, they're trying to get their piece of the action there. So just on a cash purchase, owner's title insurance is required.
Yeah, that's great to know. And, for the agents out there that might be listening to the podcast, certainly the consumers, if you don't fully understand title insurance, feel free to reach out to Cheryl.
Would
She'll
love to
educate
tell you
you.
all about it.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the one, I don't know, I might be speaking out of turn. It's one type of insurance that's a one-time only payment, right? Like it's not like other insurance policies where you're paying on it annually or
Right. And
periodic
I explain
payments.
to buyers at settlement or before settlement, if I have an opportunity to speak with them, that, if they go to refinance, it doesn't matter if it's in 3 months or 6 months, the lender is going to require a new lender's title insurance policy, even if it's the exact same lender that they closed with, because anything could happen from the date of them purchasing the home to the date they refinance, as far as someone placing a lien or a judgment against them personally. So the owner's title insurance is a one-time fee, but lenders is anytime you do financing, regardless if it's with the same lender or not. I think that's a misnomer that may be out there.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe walk us through exactly, like, if we're playing like a little Chutes and Ladders or Candyland or something, from beginning to end, what's that process look like, from like creating the settlement order, and then I guess ordering the title components, that
Right.
kind of thing. What does that look like?
So we use Qualia, which is a secure portal. Some of our competitors use that system. So some of you are like, I may not have heard that. Some other title companies actually market a different name, but it's the exact same secure portal. And that's important. And I have had some agents, kind of roll their eyes like, really? Listen, again, we're protecting you, because if somehow your client's personal information gets out because you shot it through an unsecure email, we don't want that to happen. So
Just to interject real quick, like
yeah.
wire fraud and that kind of fraud it's a real, folks. Like,
Just fraud, period. Yeah.
The more protections you have for our clients and the consumers, I'm all for it.
Of course. So we would get the sales contract typically from the realtor. They'd shoot it over. I have to say, we pride ourselves on getting the file open typically within about 2 hours. So you'll get the email right away. Title work is ordered immediately. And then once it comes in, our underwriting department is actually tasked with that. Again, freeing me up to either go do some CE, finish up my closings, but I am available. When agents call in and need to work through something, I'm here for you. We've also put our underwriting staff right in touch with some agents when they have something in particular that they want to work on. We typically order a location drawing survey. So this is not a boundary survey. Boundary surveys tend to be cost prohibitive, meaning they're just too expensive, but they do give the markers with the flags. And we certainly have a small, probably 5% of the buyers opt for the boundary survey. So we do send out a welcome letter, which I'm sure every title company does, that informs the buyer, if we're talking about the buyer side, thank you, of course. This is our role, and we explain what we do, and that this location drawing survey is optional. Did have one realtor say to me, what good are they? They don't give markers. And I think, again, if you're thinking not just about yourselves, but it sure does help to know that you've got that protection. I think that most buyers tend to think that fence lines are property lines. So they see this fence line going all the way back. I had a property myself in Severna Park that I sold back in Cool Pond. If anybody knows where that is, it's off of Robinson Road. It backs up to Cattail Creek, and all of the neighbors just push their fence lines, no kidding, like 15 feet back. I did, but when I sold, I disclosed, like, I don't own that property. But people tend to see that and think that that's their property. So I think it's a no-brainer. They're about $250. They're going to show the buyers the location of the home on the lot. And the bigger thing is they're going to point out any encroachments, which is anybody's stuff coming onto the property, or vice versa. And let me tell you, it's pretty common. It's about 50% that fence lines are wonky or sheds. So we don't blow it up. We just say, hey, this is really common, but now you're aware of it, right? Like it's not a big deal. So we order that as well. Unless they opt out, we do ask like within 48 hours for, an answer, and we're available for questions, because people tend to hear, survey and think of the boundary survey. So we order the title, we order the survey, and then depending on the contract, you can imagine, I'm going to use Piney Orchard, for instance. You've got the Master Homeowners Association, then you've got your internal HOA or condo association, then you've got the private front foot utility. And again, consumers tend to think you can just Google everything. But most of these companies now require payment up front in order to get a statement to show, what's due on account. So that's part of the information gathering. And then, as always, we're asking for information from realtors for commission and flat fees. The seller, we need to know socials, payoff information, forwarding information, marital information, not trying to get all up in your business. We're just trying to get this transaction taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you touch on a lot. You guys do so much behind the scenes, especially like you were saying. And to your point on the location drawings, we just had one not too long ago where there was a retaining wall that popped up on a location drawing that was encroaching on another lot. And a lot of times those companies that are providing the location drawings, if in fact a year or so down the road you want to put in a fence or something like that, you can put that expense towards your full boundary survey, like you said. It'd just be a
Correct. Yeah.
discount.
Most of them will give a discount going forward. And a lot of fencing contractors and landscapers actually will use the location drawing because you're coming inside the property line to do that work. So they're using the property lines to then work within.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer to have that location drawing for sure, like you were talking about.
And it's extra protection for everybody involved in the party. So, not just the buyers, but realtors as well. Because, they may be assuming those fence lines are property lines as well.
Yeah. And, like you were talking about, the front foot fees, good luck if you're a consumer trying to figure out some of the front foot fees that are out there. A lot of the homeowners don't even understand the front foot fees that they've been paying for, years. So,
correct. Yeah.
You guys
because
are
it's
able
called
to,
several different things, an annual, utility. And then you think of utility like BGE, wait a minute, or an annual assessment. Well, isn't that the tax assessor and then a private front foot? So at a capital facility, there's so many different terms, especially in Anne Arundel County. It's very confusing for consumers.
And then in our infinite wisdom within the real estate industry, we decided to call it, deferred water and sewer charges. Something completely different than what we've been calling it for all those years.
Well, hopefully as president, you can fix that for us, Greg.
Yes.
You put that on your list.
Right. Yeah. No, but there, you guys are a wealth of information, and I've leaned on you guys, tons of times in the past for information with regard to front foot fees because they're sort of anomalous out there. And then you're talking about HOAs and condo associations, and you guys are behind the scenes making sure that transfer and handoff is taken care of properly. And you're collecting information about that, making sure again that the consumer is protected. And also
the payoffs for the sellers. And it's just like a loan officer will tell you, we can only do if they're going to help us out. So we need agents to give us their information. It's like sometimes working with an agent just to get the buyer's email address is like, if we get that with the contract, we can hit the ground running. Like if you can give me as much contact information up front, we're going to go for it because we know that you're busy. So then having to have you stop and look that up and get it to us, we get that that's a hassle. So.
Right. And you guys handle the water bills here. Maryland, you're taking, escrowing some money, making sure that gets put in the new buyer's name and handling that as well.
Correct. We transfer the water for Anne Arundel County. We take care of that. Baltimore City is a whole nother animal. Obviously we do settlements in every county.
Yeah. And then, going back, you guys are doing a lot. How long would you say it takes to do a proper title search, or is it really just predicated, property to property?
It's probably property to property, regardless that it's a 6-year search, regardless, on each file. If it's a refinance, we're able to do something called a bring to date, which most of our competitors do as well, because the owner's already owned it to a certain date, so we can just bring it forward. And if you're talking about a full title search, which is what we do, not all our competitors do that. It's usually about 4 days that we're able to get that. And so that is outsourced. In the old days, I actually worked with a human being that would walk down the courthouse in Annapolis and go down to the basement where it's literally like dirt floors and going through all the records. And it's, the counties have all had staff working for years and years, scanning and getting their systems updated. And that's why I get that people think that you can Google, but it really becomes that chain of title and that puzzle trying to put it all together that takes the time. So the gathering part, as far as the title search, can be relatively quick. It's just they're not, the sources that are giving us the title work aren't examining the title. So the examination of the title is making sure those links in the chain of title, seller to buyer, and that buyer becomes a seller and so on, match up. Then it goes to underwriting. So the examination that's where, they're really going to get knee deep in the names and seeing who owned. And I did have to walk an agent through one recently. And it was that agent that wrote the contract based on an estate because that's what SDAT had listed. And there were several, they call them no consideration deeds, like interfamily deeds taking on and off family members, and that the two daughters are on there with them. So it's just something that, and that part I think is interesting. Like I said, going through those old documents and kind of looking at the names and the dates and seeing them aligned so that then it can be underwritten.
Yeah, it's fascinating to
I
kind
won't
of.
say it's exciting. Fascinating is a better word. Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of like looking at some of those old recorded documents.
Yeah.
And I mean, you guys also are undercovering like right of ways, right? You know, we have shared driveway agreements, things like that pop up in certain areas. And, you know, I guess not all counties are created equal, right? It's a little different. It's different working in each municipality.
Right. And we hit a little speed bump with one recently. And it wasn't our speed bump. It was a title thing and a lender thing that the agents weren't even aware of. It was down on Old Solomon's Road down in Edgewater and Deal, which I know that road runs all through the county, kind of like Baltimore-Annapolis Boulevard, but it's way down there. And it was a property, like an old farmhouse with several outbuildings that then were turned into homes, kind of, who knows, permitting, etc. So there were two separate addresses, two separate tax IDs, but guess what? Only one well and electric was run from the main house to the other house. So the buyers were purchasing the main home with cash, but the additional home with a mortgage. So the mortgage company required some sort of easement or well agreement and electric agreement. And the staff here, because we're affiliated with Lift, Walsh and Simmons, which is the Walsh brothers, they are part of the law firm, we were able to get that done and have the mortgage company approve it immediately and move forward. So that was a glitch that the agents were like, I don't know how we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, I got you. Like, no problem. So I think it was $1,200 for the two agreements. And the parties were happy. Like, they wrote it up in the contract that they were going to split it because the buyer wasn't aware that it was just one well and the electric was, who knows who set that up, right? That could have been years and years ago. Right.
Yeah. You've probably seen all kinds of things in your development journey when it comes to that. And that's nice to have you guys are obviously owned or affiliated with the law firm as well. So to be able to have that is definitely a nice feature.
And especially because they're local. You know, I've worked in the past and attorneys are always somehow in the title world, but they're not necessarily local to you. You know, they could be out of state, which is how it was previously for me.
Right. See what else we have here that I had questions for. Title examination, we kind of talked a little bit about that.
Right.
What kind of information are you needing from the clients? I guess prior to settlement day, what things do you guys need from the buyers?
So the buyers, we need to know how they're going to hold title. Obviously, if it's one person, it's typically going to be solely. We're finding more and more couples wanting to purchase in a trust. And prior to, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, that recent, conventional lenders, and I don't mean a conventional loan, but not hard money, just your regular lenders that you see around, like Mike at Main Street, they wouldn't be able to lend a trust. Now these conventional lenders have really changed things up because it's more than a trend. I think more people are, and I get it that you think of a trust of being a certain age group, but I think you'd be interested to know it's probably younger than what you think, that we're seeing these homeowners that want to buy in a trust. So then we have to get an addendum because the sales contract has to match how the title is going to be. So if Bob Smith, dad, is buying a property for his daughter, and then 2 days before settlement, oh yeah, I want my daughter to be on the deed because I'm really buying it for her. Well, then we need an addendum showing Bob Smith and Patty Smith, and how are they going to hold title? You know, is it going to be a certain percentage? And so we're able to help people decipher what the best tenancy is for them. We do give that information to them. And it's not like there's so very many options, but it can be tricky. There's a lot of people buying homes that are engaged but not married yet, and some putting down more than the other money. So sometimes that can be a little tricky. Yeah.
And you guys, I know, how do you guys handle, let's say we see this sometimes in the service, if we have one of the clients is stateside, one of the other clients is overseas, how do you handle that kind of notary or
one thing, when I do have a chance to speak with realtors, and I always appreciate it, is that we don't take things for granted. That old saying that my 6th grade teacher told me that I'll never forget is, what happens when we assume. So I believe that a lot of consumers assume that they can digitally sign. And so you don't think to say, hey, are you going to be in town for the settlement? And we'll ask, are you going to be in town for settlement? And they'll mark yes. But then when we go to set it up, oh, I'm not going to be here. Just tell me what website I need to go to. So Maryland's one of the, I want to say, the old school type states. I think there's a lot of lawsuits and class action lawsuits that the clerks are afraid of. So the digital signing is really for a niche buyer. A cash purchase that's an investment property, those buyers can click and sign all they want all day long. But if it's going to be an owner occupancy, the clerk of the court won't accept a digitally signed owner occupancy affidavit that has to attach to the deed. So like you were saying, one's in town, one's not. So if they have a mortgage, it's impossible. And I've worked with some of the best lenders, Mike and Pete over at Main Street, same thing. They cannot make like a different page for a different notary for one of the buyers, so that if they're signing in Texas and the other one's in Maryland, they all have to sign the day of settlement. So really the best option for that is a power of attorney. And we have the statutory power of attorney, and most lenders are on board with that unless it's an out-of-state lender that's a little bit wonky, funky. And then we work with them. Sometimes we have to edit it a little bit for them. But we get it over to the lender. The lender still has to approve it. But that's really the best option. So I think, again, people assume, not just consumers, but some realtors, because there's a competitor that's out there that does a lot of bait and switch on this. You can sign anytime, anywhere. Well, there should be a little asterisk next to that saying if. So it will be there. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but it's certainly questions to ask your clients is really, it's almost like there should be a list, like
Sure.
or statements, you must be present in person. But I will say that most sellers are still doing separate settlements. We don't charge a settlement fee for the seller if they want to pre-sign. We have sellers out of state that we have a national notary company that's vetted. So they get a picture of the person that's visiting them. It's really important for them to feel safe with whomever is coming to meet them. But there's all kinds of options. And it's just getting that information as soon as possible. But we've also been able to rally in the last, like somebody finds something out, even in 24 hours, we're able to quickly get some triage and get it to work for everybody.
Awesome. Being flexible and able to pivot.
Got to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much to unpack with the whole settlement process. I mean, we really didn't even touch on plats, but you're able to assist agents if they're looking for a plats, and it's a separate repository where the plats are kept here in Maryland, and sometimes it's quite the treasure hunt trying to track down a plat. And
sometimes the plats are really horrible and not very good. We have a buyer that wanted a stake survey, a boundary survey in a community in Pasadena, and I've spoken to 3 surveyors, and I already knew that the plat was bad because my underwriting was even having difficulty. It's an older water privileged community, which Anne Arundel County has a lot of, right? Yeah. So again, another pivot. I'm working with another engineer surveying company down in Annapolis, in Eastport, old school guy that is actually digging through his closed files. And that's what's great about making these relationships over 30 some years, that I'm able to call on, hey, have you ever done anything in this neighborhood? He's like, that's a horrible plat, but I think I have an old file, so maybe I can help you.
Yeah, I might even know which deal you're referring to on that one, but yeah, so
Lane.
yeah, exactly. I sold that house at one point in time. So we sort of pulled back the layers and looked a little bit at the sausage making process, right? Kind of all the you got your hands
Nobody
dirty.
wants to see that. Right.
Nobody wants to see that, but it's juicy. You guys do lots of stuff behind the scenes that most of the time the consumer, the clients don't even, and the agents for that matter, don't even realize that you guys are doing. But let's kind of sort of fast forward maybe to settlement day. Yep. You guys, you're a notary, right? You've got all the documents for the. It's really, hopefully by that time it's like that. Everyone's high-fiving and everyone's happy to, sledding down.
I love making it a really positive experience for everybody. I want it to be all about, especially the buyers or the seller, I want it to be their day. So it's going to be all positivity. It's going to be, information. And I just say throughout, like this, there's not going to be a quiz after, and we're here for you. I had somebody get a hold of me through Google for a property I closed with Sentinel Title, which doesn't exist any longer, in 1997. And I was able to help her. There was a strip of land that the prior deed from when she purchased, it was an error, and it's all fixed. She sent me a box of Cheryl's cookies. But I mean, we're here for your agents and consumers after settlement. And that's what I want them to know. Like, it's a relationship that, we're going to be here to call on us. And the portals are great because then the buyers or sellers can go back into the Qualia portal and look at their documents, or, pull anything that they may need, or, just call us and we can get it to them just as easily.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And, I guess right before settlement, you guys are compiling that, we love to get the preliminary altas. If you're doing a cash, it's still probably on a HUD-1.
It's a priority. Yeah. Getting you those numbers. I mean, isn't that really what it's all about? Even for the buyer, absolutely for the seller. So obviously for the realtors. And we would never, it is like ingrained in our staff, never to send out a sheet without the realtor having a chance to review it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just, we want you to shine as the stars that you are, as sales folks. And we know what it's taken for you to get through this transaction, and how this new life in real estate is with this tight market. Like, every deal is so much sweeter, right? So we want you to have that opportunity to review it, ask questions, so that at settlement, if the buyer looks up and says, "What is this?" Yes, well, this is, you're going to know.
Yeah, and that's, I try to, I probably sound like a broken record to my agents, but I say, that preliminary alta is like one of the most important things that you can get, right? Those numbers should match your net sheet that you provided sellers. If there's any surprises, it'll show up there, right? And if you get that a few days ahead of time, like we should, then we're able to problem solve. And
I'm
that
still blown away by some agents that don't take the time to review it. So we'll continually email, "Hey, have you had chance? Can we send it? Go ahead and send it." And then at settlement, and guys, I've been doing this for 37 years. It happens quite a few times that we're sitting at settlement and the agent will say, "My commission's wrong." And I think, "You just made this whole thing about you, and I want you to get your right commission. It's payday. I want you to be excited. I want you to get paid. But listen, if you're not going to look at everything, because I know it's a lot, just look at your own numbers. Please make sure that we have your commission and your flat fee correct."
Yeah, that's 100%. For me, it's not about the commission. It's really just to make sure all those numbers are right, and what we've advised and told our clients in the consultation process and putting together those net sheets.
And don't ever feel silly about calling about a question or a fee or something that maybe you have a question on, so that if the buyer or seller does ask you, that you're prepared. I'm happy to inform you. And with regards to the surprises, Greg, it does happen, right? You just think there's one mortgage and maybe there's a home equity that they weren't thinking of. We're going to let you know. Like, when the title comes in, if we're seeing more than one mortgage or something funky, we don't wait to put it on the prelim alta several days later. We're going to reach out to you right away to let you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know in Maryland, we're still killing lots of trees, and with our settlement process, we got lots of paperwork. Hopefully one day we can maybe figure out a way to minimize some of the paperwork for the buyers, especially when there's a loan in place.
I agree. Yeah, that'd be great.
And then you touched on it briefly, and I don't know if it was, I think COVID certainly helped facilitate this, but obviously more and more we're seeing buyer settlements and seller settlements.
Yeah. So it really was, I will say it was a trend, certainly before COVID. It really was. And through my years, it was like there was always this great energy at the settlement table when I first started in the 80s and early 90s. Then it got a little like, "I'm paying too much and I'm not getting enough." The sellers, then it was, "How did walkthrough go? Your wife left some crumbs in the oven." What? Like, it can become personal. I've had it where, and I understand that it was an estate sale, and so the sellers, they're crying and sad, and the buyers feeling horrible for them when they want to feel excited for themselves. So I kind of like it. It is a little more work for us, but I think it's more of a business transaction for everybody.
I like it. Don't even get me started on the whole.
And that awkward moment when the buyer says to the seller, "Can I have your number in case I have any questions?" Like when the oven doesn't work.
Yeah, but we went through the whole short sale phase, and when we had buyers and sellers on the short sales, I was like, "Oh,
right."
I'm okay with it. The separate settlement for sure.
Yeah.
And then you guys are taking that and recording that at the county, right? And
absolutely. And I have to say, Hogan did a phenomenal job, whether you love him or hate him, back when COVID locked everybody down, and really pushed that digital recording through, because it was in the pipeline to come down, but it probably would have lingered a few more years. And he really made it a priority and got it done quickly. So we are able to digitally record most of the deeds and lien documents. However, on the seller side, if there's any kind of withholding tax or tax sale redemption or water, like outstanding crazy water situation, typically that's still going to be an old school hand recording, which is not going to, believe it or not, not going to show up any later than the digital deed. The State Department of Assessment and Taxation and all of the counties really got backlogged with indexing documents, so they're searchable online. So there may be some agents that are viewing this thinking, yeah, I had a settlement 6 months ago and that deed still isn't recorded. What have they done? So they probably recorded it right away. It's just taking a longer time for those documents to get numbers attached to them, so they're searchable online. Like you can, if you do a deep dive into Maryland land rec searching names, you may be able to find it. But I really make sure that buyers and sellers understand that it's not me trying to pass the ball, the blame to anyone. It's not, I hate that it is what it is, but it truly is. We're at the mercy of some other parties so that those documents are indexed, which means they're now searchable online. So that LIBOR and folio, which is like a book and page number, those are the numbers that are, sent by the state and the county level, and then you can start searching. So yeah, I let everybody know. So we do our best to make sure every buyer gets a certified copy of the signed deed, just to give them a comfort level. I'm like, hey, just think before the internet, like this was it.
Yeah.
So it's not just young people. Yeah. Like everybody's looking to see things instantly online. I get it.
Yeah. And, just know we preach this, but it's, it is public record. Don't ever pay for your copy of your deed.
Yes.
That scam is out there and still.
Right. And we've always provided the homestead property tax credit application already filled out with all the property information. And we get it that people can opt for the digital, but you do have to wait until the documents are searchable and indexed. So there's still some backlog with that. It hasn't caused anybody to miss their date for homestead because you have to be there. It has to be a principal residence for one full fiscal year. But we just added an automation in our system through Qualia, and I'm super excited about it, that once we get the recorded deed, so we've got the LIBOR and folio, that we send an automated email. Even though we give the application at closing, we're now sending an email saying, hey, don't forget to fill out the homestead credit application and get that in.
That's awesome. A great reminder to the clients. Well, we could probably, there's so much, like I said, to unpack with the settlement process. We could probably do an entire day on everything that you guys do. But this was a quick tour of sort of behind the scenes, what you guys do. I really, really appreciate your time. And Cheryl, if someone needed to get a hold of you, because there are some times when the consumer just needs title services without the real estate agent running interference, so to speak, how would someone get in touch with you?
Cell's the best, 410-739-3866. Text, call.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And as always, if anyone has any questions, you can give me a call here at the office too, 410-260-0202. Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to
earning your business. Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.